Hello everyone! I hope you all enjoyed my yesterday's video, Ivanchuk's bold king march against Wei Yi. But it's time to get back to our 1991 Linares series, featuring also Vassily Ivanchuk. This is round 8, he has the black pieces against Viswanathan Anand. In the previous 7 games, Ivanchuk won 2 games and drew 5. But the games he won were against world number 1 and world champion Garry Kasparov, rated 2800. That's simply an amazing rating for 1991. And the second game he won was against world number 2 and former world champion Anatoly Karpov. So Ivanchuk won against world number 1 and world number 2, and he drew 5 more games. This is round 8, and Anand plays e4. c5, the Sicilian defense, knight to f3, d6, d4, c captures on d4, knight captures, knight to f6, knight to c3, and a6. Ivanchuk goes for the Najdorf variation. Bishop to c4, e6, transposing into the Scheveningen variation. Anand castles, we have bishop to e7, bishop to b3, Ivanchuk castles, f4, and now b5. Anand goes for f5 and b4, knight to a4. And can Ivanchuk capture this pawn on e4? Well, no, he can't. If he would capture, there's simply too much pressure on e6. F captures on e6. You can't really recapture this. Well, white is threatening to capture on f6. And for example, knight goes back to f6. Now capturing on f7 with check, king h8, and now bishop to e6. This is just terrible for black. So after knight to a4, Ivanchuk played e5, now kicking that knight away from d4. We have knight to e2, and well, can the pawn be captured now? Unfortunately not, because if knight captures on e4, queen to d5. Now with an attack on this knight and also with an attack on the rook, so this would also be very unfortunate. So after knight to e2, Ivanchuk played bishop to b7, and now he definitely is threatening to capture the pawn. So Anand defends it, knight to g3, and we have knight b to d7. Preparing to jump to c5 to add more pressure to the e4 pawn, and also to guard this b6 square if Anand develops the bishop, for example, on e3. Queen to e1, adding more protection to the pawn. And now a5, we have c4, queen to c7, queen to e2, rook f to c8, bishop to g5, knight to c5, now adding one more attacker to the e4 pawn, and Anand plays rook 8 to c1. And this is also a very interesting position. Ivanchuk is now attacking the e4 pawn 3 times, so can the pawn be captured now? Well, not really. If knight captures, then knight captures, and after knight captures, then bishop captures on e7. Queen captures on e7, and now knight to b6, forking the rooks, and well, this would definitely favor white. So after rook 8 to c1, Ivanchuk played h6, saying to Anand, well, either capture my knight on f6 and I will then have the bishop pair, or remove your bishop from g5. Anand, of course, doesn't want to give Ivanchuk the bishop pair. He plays bishop to e3, which is a good move. It threatens this knight on c5, and also if the knight moves, this knight can freely jump to b6, as now this bishop on e3 is protecting b6. Ivanchuk plays knight c to d7. Now this knight is guarding the b6 square, and we have bishop to f2, rook to a6 by Ivanchuk, adding more protection to the b6 square. But also with an idea of now freeing this a8 square for the queen. For example, queen b8, queen a8. So adding more attack to the e4 pawn that way. Rook to c2 by Anand. We have queen to b8, now proceeding with the plan. A rook to e1, now overprotecting the e4 pawn. Queen to e8, a8, now adding more pressure to the a4 pawn. And queen to d3, so now that the rook is defending the pawn before the queen. And, well, there's really no way to add any more pressure to the e4 pawn immediately, but Ivanchuk finds a different idea. He plays knight to g4, and this is a beautiful square for the knight, because he wants to improve the position of this knight on d7. Now Ivanchuk freed this f6 square for this other knight, And well, like I said, this knight is excellent on g4. You can't really kick it away from there. It's also threatening this beautiful bishop. This Anand's bishop on f2 is a monster piece. Look at this diagonal, it's slicing. And playing h3, Ivanchuk will simply capture the bishop, and you'll simply weaken your king's protection. So we have knight to f1, remaneuvering the knight to d2 to protect d4 from there. We have the other knight comes to f6 now, adding more pressure to the e4 pawn, and now knight to d2, adding more defense to the e4 pawn. So well, this entire game is basically about this e4 pawn. Knight captures on f2. Now Vassily eliminates this immensely powerful piece that is the bishop on f2. King captures on f2, and bishop to c6. And to understand this bishop to c6 move, you really have to see far into the future, like Ivanchuk does, as you'll see later. Rook c to c1 by Anand. We have queen to a7 with check. King goes to e2. Rook to d8. Bishop to d1. And now, well, what is every player's dream? I mean, every player who plays the Sicilian dreams of one thing, and that is to push d5 in the Sicilian. And Ivanchuk finds a way to do it here. He plays d5. C captures on d5, and now knight captures on d5. Ivanchuk sacrifices the knight. E captures on d5, and rook captures on d5. Would an attack on the queen. And well, this is a very unpleasant position for Anand. As you see, this queen is slicing all the way this way. The rook is attacking the queen. The bishop is, well, after the rook moves, it will be guarding f3. So this king, it's really stuck there on e2. This is very unpleasant. Here Anand played queen to b3. And, well, one of the reasons Ivanchuk might have played bishop to c6 could be explained with the idea that in this position Ivanchuk has the immediate win with rook captures on d2 check. And this is a forcing variation. King captures on d2, queen to f2 check, rook to e2 defending, now bishop to g5 with check. King to c2, now queen captures on f5 with check. You have to block this check. Queen to d3, and now bishop captures on a4. And well, this could have been why Ivanchuk played bishop to c6 in that position, but it's really not. b3, now rook to c6 check, king has to go back, and now bishop captures on c1 with check, king to a1, and queen captures on d3. White is completely lost, he's getting checkmated in 3 moves. And well, this, like I said, it's a forcing variation in 7 moves, but this is not what Ivanchuk played. After queen to b3, Ivanchuk did not capture the knight on d2, rather he calmly improves the position with bishop to g5, now threatening to capture on d2 so that the white king can't even recapture it. Anand here plays rook to c2, now defending this knight, and Ivanchuk plays bishop captures on d2, and in this position Anand resigned the game. What's the idea here? Well, the idea is that after rook captures on d2, Ivanchuk has this bishop to b5 check. And I believe this move is the reason why that bishop to c6 was played. This is the position Ivanchuk saw when he played bishop to c6. Rook has to block, rook to d3, and now rook captures on d3, and it's game over for Anand. Anand is losing the queen, and if he tries to protect the queen, for example, with a move like queen to c2, this leads to checkmate, queen to e3 check, king to f1, rook captures on d1, queen has to block the check from the bishop on b5, and now simply bishop captures on e2 with checkmate. And well, look at this beautiful constellation. But none of this happened. After bishop captures on d2, Anand saw that this is completely winning for Ivanchuk, and he resigned the game. So far, Ivanchuk won against Garry Kasparov, Anatoly Karpov, and Viswanathan Anand. Now, this was round 8, and well, we'll just continue with this beautiful tournament that is Linares 1991. So that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Arturo Cardenas and Jason Pierre Sweeney for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. They will be about Ivanchuk. So yeah, thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.